All right, guys, promised you some more special guests and excited to talk today to Katrina Woolverton and Val Garay. And first off, Katrina and Val, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show and excited to talk about this new collaborative project as well.
Glad we could do it.
Now tell us, Katrina, what it means for you on a project to have the opportunity to work with somebody the likes of a producer of Val's stature and the names that he's worked with. I mean, did it put a little pressure on you?
You know, the first time around, because Val did my first album, my freshman album, about 15 years ago
15
now.
years ago, I did that.
And so then, even then, it was a big deal because it was my first record, and he really took a chance on me then. And I think we created a really beautiful album from top to bottom.
And we had Bonnie Hayes as a collaborative writer too, so that probably put a little more heat even so on it.
So at that time, I had a chance to really process what he was bringing and the opportunity he was giving me. And so now for him to want to work with me again after all these years, it really speaks volumes to his belief in my abilities creatively. And also the music that we're doing now is so it's so iconic that it's really a gift from him. And I just try to treasure all the moments we have in the studio and really listen and absorb what he has to say, because I'm in a different place now as an artist, and I have more experience to bring to the table, which gives me a different level of understanding of what he's sharing about the technical aspects of what we're doing or how he goes about building a song. Of course, I learned so much the first time around because I knew so little when it came to the recording process. Obviously, we're always learning, but yes, it is a very big deal for me. And I feel like Val is in some ways gifting me a piece of his legacy and letting me stand on the shoulders of his success.
And Val, for you to look back at the original release of Bette Davis Eyes and to see what you've been able to reimagine, re-envision of it in the EDM style. I've also heard the remix version as well. How cool is it, and to reinvigorate some, well, I can say it now too because I'm old too, some old lyrics, if you will.
Well, the interesting part for me was that I've been approached 100 times by every major singer you could imagine to redo that song, and I would never do it. I was just an absolute no. Mm-hmm. When Katrina came to me with the concept of doing it as a dance record, taking it completely out of the space that it was in originally and reimagining it, like you said, in a whole new way, that intrigued me. I've always loved the lyrics to the song. When I got the original demo to the song, it was nothing like the record that I did with Kim Carnes. Mm-hmm. It sounded like a Leon Russell meets Joe Cocker kind of track. It was an R&B sound. And one of the things that really attracted me to it was the lyric and the fact that Jackie DeShannon was a co-writer. Now, I put a band together in 1965 to back Jackie DeShannon in San Jose. So that's when I first met her. And so I knew she was a folk singer. So I sat down with an acoustic guitar and sort of played the song the way I thought it would be, better as like almost like a modern electronic folk song. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it was conceived from my end. So then when it came time to do it with Katrina, and she has all the input to the EDM world because she's an avid fan of that music. And she explained to me and gave me a whole bunch of songs that I could listen to on Spotify that were, collaborative, done big hits like Padam Padam with Kylie Minogue and all these major EDM records. And, as I said to her in the beginning, it's music. So it's just a matter of arrangement and sound and the choices you make. And you can make a record like that, which I did. But it was a lot of fun to do it this way. And she's such a great singer. And she paid so much attention to the original version that Kim did that it has the skeleton sense of the original, but it's clearly sped up and has a 4-on-the-floor dance rhythm to it that just doesn't go away. So it was a ton of fun to do this.
Now, Katrina, for you, when did the idea of Bette Davis Eyes, or maybe was it one of those first songs that you ever fell in love with, and it was one that maybe you held on to? Is that what sparked the interest in the revival of it, if you will?
Well, I knew from the beginning, even before I asked Val at all, that he was never, well, I guess never say never, that he was never going to redo that song, because when we first
never, no way, never. I was never going to revisit that one. So it'd be like somebody coming back and saying to Elvis, "Would you mind recutting Heartbreak Hotel?
Right.
We want to hear a modern version." And if he were alive today, he'd just laugh them out of the room, you know.
Mm-hmm. So from round one, we'll just call album one round one for our purposes, I guess. I knew that he was not interested in redoing that track, because it wasn't even a question. It would come up in conversation all the time. I mean, you've had so many hits, but it's really up there. And yes, I've always loved that song, and I've always loved all kinds of music. So Kim Carnes, you know, so silly because I was so young. And I didn't even really know what the words meant because I was so young, but Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer, for example, I always loved that song. And then as I grew older, realized, oh, that's the same person. Because when you're a kid, you have kind of a different context of things, right? But I always was attracted to certain kinds of music. And that was always one of my favorite songs. And so, yeah, of course, you know, there's just certain songs everyone wants to do because they're just amazing songs. The lyrics are great. They're very unique. They make you feel a certain way. And I think as musicians, you know, the major part of why we do this is we want to share a feeling, whatever that feeling is in that music. So yes, I always wanted to do it, but I never thought it would be possible. And so when we were talking about this new project, which kind of came about sort of by accident, because I didn't even know that Val wanted to work with me again. I really didn't. Because he and my husband are really good friends and have stayed in touch all these years. And so when I finally said to my husband, George, you know, I want to go back into the studio and this is my concept. And he said, you should talk to Val. Val's been asking when you're going to record again. He wants to work with you. And I go, he has? Since when? He goes, since always, but I didn't tell you because, you know, he knew you were working with someone else. You were in the middle of that. And then after that, you really didn't have interest in going back in the studio because you didn't have a concept. And so when we sat down, it just kind of like came out. I mean, once I knew that you liked the concept and you said, well, what do you want to do? What kind of songs do you want to do? And I said, I think we should do Bette Davis Eyes. And you thought about it. And he said, yes. And I still couldn't believe it until the song actually came out that this was really happening. And it's incredible. I'm really grateful.
Because when you think of how iconic the song is, you know, I mean, it's got almost 2 billion streams. And it's like, it's incomprehensible how big this record was. It's the 5th biggest single in the history of this business. Mm-hmm. And when you get to that level, you know, you never think about even going near something like that. But like she said, I maintained a really close friendship with her husband, George. And so we used to have breakfast once a month over at this cute little restaurant in Santa Monica called 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐿 Coffee Shop, which my friend Bruce Martyr owned, who was a big restaurateur. And he bought this little joint and then turned it into a very expensive little joint, but it's cool. And so we'd go there and have a conversation. We talk about life and everything that's going on. And I always asked him, you know, how's Katrina doing? And she, you know, who's she working with? And he'd tell me the songs they were doing. And I just said to him, well, you know, if she ever gets the idea to do something really interesting, I'd be interested in doing it because she's a great voice. And, you know, I've worked with a lot of great voices in my career. She's right there with all of them. You know, she could sing she could sing the phone book. So, you know, well, when I said to George, you know, if she has any ideas, I'd love to hear them. He said to her, and consequently, the whole thing started to formulate. And, you know, I'm glad that it did because we're really having a great time. And this is going to be an album, not just one of. So we're on to the fourth track now. We've done 3, and we're headed to the fourth track now.
Now, Val, how much has layering of audio and vocals, how much is it easier now, or is it maybe is it harder to stop? Is it harder to say that your editing is over when you're in the production mode, if you will?
No, not really. You know, the vocal part of it, the actual tracking of the voices of her is the same. It hasn't changed an inch. I used the same Neumann 67 I used on Linda and James and everybody else. And I used the same compressor and EQ, and it's just a great chain for vocals. Mm-hmm. And she loves the way I do vocals, and so does most people. So that part is never changed. Mm-hmm. Everything else is changed completely. You know, I sit here in this room behind me, and you know, I can record pretty much and do anything I did at Record One, which I built in 1980 and spent $3.5 million building, and had a staff of 20 people to make this thing work. Mm-hmm. It's me and an assistant, and I can do everything here that I did there. Wow. And that's because of the digital age, you know, Pro Tools. And as far as the tracking of stuff, it's all pretty much, for this music, is all pretty much programmed. Mm. There's some things that are played, like some of the keyboard tracks are played so you have a MIDI file that you can put into Serum or one of these other programs to change it to whatever you want it to sound like. But that part of the playing still remains the same. But it's a different process altogether, unless you're doing an album like I did a country record a couple of years ago with Richie Furay, and we went to Nashville and tracked it there and then brought it back here and finished it. But pretty much it's all done inside of a computer now.
Now, Katrina, what is it about a project that inspires you? I mean, like you said, you kind of had a gap there where you weren't inspired. You didn't know what was the next thing. What triggers that inspiration for you?
Well, you know, life is inspiration, our interactions with other people and the emotions we go through, that's all inspiration. I was, you know, going through some things, as one does. It's not a woe is me situation. It's just, you know, we all go through stuff, and sometimes it causes us to take a step back or not even necessarily realize how closed off we are to certain things like our own creativity. And I also, you know, not having been totally in touch with that sentiment within myself, just didn't have a vision of what I wanted to create next. And I was really searching for that. My previous project was kind of a marriage between electronic sounds and organic instruments. And I really wanted that juxtaposition to be obvious when someone listened to it. And you know, after that music came out, and some of it did fairly well. Like that was my Hold Me Down went top 40, which I did with Michael Blue, which was great, who you recently met, and that was a ton of fun. Michael was so happy to have you in the studio. I was invited to race on a sail racing team, my friend's father's boat, last summer, and my husband and I had semi-recently bought a sailboat, which isn't so small. And so I was going through getting the confidence and learning how to operate the boat, and then being part of a team and being put in what could potentially be dangerous situations, and really relying on your team, and they relied on me, and being out in nature, and that whole the collective experience, it just opened my heart, and it gave me a different perspective on everything. It made me realize how sad I really was, and you know, that I thought I was dealing with all these different feelings in a better way than I actually was. So once I started to clear through some of that, and I came out on the other side of the racing season, and I started taking the helm on my own boat, and you know, pulling her in and out of the slip is really a challenge. And so that was an incredible accomplishment. And also these guys, these really experienced sail racers who'd sailed together for 10 plus years, you know, they gave me a chance because they needed an alternate.
Well, tell them about Bill too.
Bill Peterson.
Yeah, Bill Peterson.
Yeah, and so the gentleman that we bought the boat from won the America's Cup back for America in 1987.
And this guy can sail, because I went out on their boat with him about 2 weeks ago, and the guy's like, it's crazy. He's yelling at her, you know, pull that one in 2 inches, push that one out 4 inches, and I'm looking at him going, oh my God.
It's fun. And he also taught me how to tie really complicated knots, ones that you would need to, you know, in a difficult situation, if you needed something to hold, you know, if something broke or you had to cut it and retie it. And so it's just this whole different thing that I learned how to do. And so I came out on the other side of all of that. And my husband and I were away in Tahiti on a really beautiful trip. And then I found myself attracted to a certain kind of music. And I realized this was the music I'd been listening to all throughout. Music that helped heal me, music that helped me feel connected, music that people who only listen to country or only listen to jazz or classical, or, you know, one friend only listened to country, one friend is a professional ballroom dancer. And so here we all were listening to EDM on race nights. And here I was on holiday with my husband playing all these great EDM songs. And then I had a couple of songs that charted at dance. One of them we did, it came off of our first album, OPM, which was also remixed by Dave Audet, who's a very famous remixer. And just all kind of came together, and I had this vision and I felt it, and I knew exactly what kind of music I wanted to make and exactly how I wanted it to make people feel, and how I wanted it to bring people together and kind of take you on this little journey that either would help you feel more connected to your feelings or give you an escape, depending on where your head was. And I thought, wow, this is music I really need to make. And so that's kind of like the long answer to your short question, but it's multi-layered. And that's what informed this particular project. And the thing is, I didn't know exactly how I was going to get there as far as an end product. I had some different ideas, but you know, Val, he's never done EDM proper, but he has experience in everything. And even though he's done all sorts of different kinds of music, it's always straddled and overlapped the lane of pop. And so pop music is pop music. And like Val said, music is music. And, you know, we also believe that EDM is the next iteration or one of the things that's going to be pop music. So that's kind of how the inspiration came to be.
Now, Val, how surprised are you now by the staying power, if you will, of EDM as opposed to the first time you heard it?
Well, the staying power of it to me is focused around not only the rhythm of it, but the song structure. Because if you listen to popular music today, like Watermelon Sugar, the guy says the same phrase for 320 times and it's the end of it. And the reason, because my friend Enrico Pettucci, who runs the royalty division of Universal Music Group, he said to me in a conversation we had not long ago, that he said, you realize that music from 1975 to 2000 outsells new music, which I didn't know that. And that's what's happening now. And the reason is, in my humble opinion, is the songs. Kids are getting attracted to how great the songs were in that era, not because of the type of songs or the, you know, the band or who it was, but the songs themselves have a life of their own and they're attracted to it. So there's a reason for that. And when you listen to like EDM music, I mean, you listen to the Grammy, won the Grammy for the EDM category was Kylie Minogue. The song Padam Padam it's a song. It's a good song. And song structure is starting to become more popular. So therefore, I feel that once it catches, you know, on with kids, then that'll be probably the next iteration of pop music.
Now,
it's like, you know, when it went into disco, you know, I mean, disco is really based around a dance rhythm, you know, and that was huge for like 10 years.
Now, have you had a hard time keeping up with the trends as you've elevated in age. I know myself over the last couple of years, once I hit 50, I've had a harder time keeping up with the stuff that my daughter likes, with the pop and stuff like that. Has that been more work for you?
Not at all.
No.
I've always loved the cutting edge of everything. So I listen to everything that's new. I love, the fact that these people are doing what they're doing, I mean, to me, Taylor Swift is a genius. I mean, here's a girl who's started out as a songwriter basically, in Nashville, and she wrote some pretty good songs in the beginning. She's not the best voice in the world, but that machine that she's conceived and put together, she did it. I mean, she does everything. She books her own shows, she manages herself, she does everything. So on that level, you got to hand it to her. On the musical level, there's a lot of other artists that I've heard that are more exciting to me, song wise, than the kind of stuff that she does now, because she's just pure pop, which is almost a cross between hip hop and rap in some ways.
Right.
So, it's okay, but I still love the songs. I came out of that school from the Brill Building, with Carole King and Jerry Goffin and Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, and you just can't, Under the Boardwalk. I mean, come on, man. I mean,
I have something to add.
And the interesting thing is, let me just say one more thing. The interesting thing is that you're starting to see bits and pieces of that appear in pop music right now. Because if you listen to the Frankie Valli song that little girl redid, all she does is sing, "I love you, baby." And if it's not, she doesn't sing the verses. She just sings the chorus over and over. And the other one is "Stand By Me," which has been redone with different lyrics, but it's the same song, and they had to give the original writers the credit, which is called "Hands on Me."
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that, to me, the attraction there is the great melodic structure of those songs.
So to go back to your question, though, I remember Georgie came home one day and you guys had breakfast, and he goes, "Oh, have you heard of that Billie Eilish person? She'd just come out." And I said, "Yeah, of course." And George goes, "She's going to win all sorts of awards." I go, "Well, how do you know this?" He said, "Well, I had breakfast with Val today and we were talking about pop music, and he said, that Billie Eilish person, she's going to win all sorts of awards, including a Grammy, if not more than one Grammy." And so it's just interesting because you have your finger so on the pulse of
music. I mean, when I first heard her music when it came out, it was so different, and so unusual, but kind of hip in a very strange way. I knew this girl was going to connect. I just knew it. And I told her husband, George, I said, she's going to be huge. And her last album outsold Taylor Swift.
Well, you talk about kind of the way music has changed, and talk about artists evolving. You remember my son, who's now 28, whenever he was first in his formative years, he was telling me about this young artist called Post Malone. About 10 years ago, he was telling me about Post Malone, and I was listening to Post Malone then, and I was like, I can't play any of that stuff. But
what
man
was
alive,
so great about Post Malone? I'll tell you what was great: the songs.
Yeah,
Post Malone had great songs,
and
that's what motivated everybody to listen to Post Malone. Forget the tattoos, forget the look, forget all the mishigas that goes along with it, but the songs were incredible songs. And I mean, I couldn't stop listening that first hit he did.
Yeah, and it's so cross genre as well.
Yeah,
like you said, you talk about him, you gotta talk.
It wasn't in a lane by itself like Billie Eilish is. It wasn't in a lane by itself like Billie Eilish is. She's in a lane by herself. Post Malone could capture the R&B crowd, could capture the pop crowd. He goes almost across the board.
Now, Katrina, with the single out, and what has it been like for you to get feedback from fans who have, well, maybe have wanted to have a reimagination of it that the guy next to you said no to for so many years? What's it like to get that feedback?
It's a thrill. It's beyond exciting. it's an iconic song. I never would have done it if Val wasn't willing to do it with me. And it's just an incredible feeling, you know, to create something that people connect to, that makes them feel good. You know, I've had a lot of people reach out and say, "Oh, this is going to be the song of the summer," or, you know, I'm really happy you did it because I wanted a fresh version of this song that goes like on this kind of playlist or whatever. But I don't think in any way it's going to replace the original. I based on the feedback, I think it's, you know, I think that original is always going to stand on its own because it's just an incredible production, a very unique kind of vocal delivery by Kim. But the feedback has all been positive, which is really exciting because, you know,
it's all good.
When you bite off something like that, you don't know if people are going to love it or if you're going to get completely skewered. So far it's been good. So I'm just hoping for more of the same and really grateful for the warm reception and people accepting it. It's exciting.
And Val, to talk about the differences of release day as opposed to when you first began in this industry. I mean, release day, it's a little harder to track the units, isn't it? Or is it easier now?
No, I think it's way easier because all the metrics are so in place now. I mean, I have an app. I can't show you because it's on that phone, but I have an app called Muso AI that you pay like 90 something a year to join. Tracks every single thing you've done in terms of streams. So every record I've made, every song that I put out in terms of streams. And when I saw the total, I was like, you got to be kidding. It's like 3,849,000,000. And it says I'm in the top 1% in the, you know, music world. So
wow,
I find that pretty flattering, you know.
I know, right? We all do the golf clap. That's
because I mean, you know, I mean, songs like Summer Breeze, they got almost 1 billion spins, you know. I mean, December 63, Oh What a Night, another one that's like that. And not counting all the Linda Ronstadt, Blue Bayous, and James Taylor, and, you know, all those records. Oh my God, it's like crazy.
And when you look back, Val, is it hard to place yourself at those times? I mean, to you know, listen to them and realize how much of an impact you've had on generations.
No, I don't think about that at all. It's funny. My brother says to me sometimes, he goes, "Val, do you realize you're the soundtrack to a lot of people's lives?" I didn't. All I know is that I love what I do and I'm good at it and I enjoy doing it. And, you know, when I listened to Up on the Roof, which I did like a week ago of James that I did years ago, that's 40 years ago and it still sounds fantastic, you know? So I've captured all these little things in a time capsule and they continue to live on. They don't sound old. They don't sound outdated. They just sound like great music. So thrilled to have been able to work with artists of her caliber and their caliber, and thrilled to have been part of it. Do I think about it in those terms, going back, how great it was and what I did, and is it amazing? No, that never, ever crosses my mind. And I'm always looking at the next project.
Well, another thing I want to ask you about, something that's really hit me over the last few years is we're always told how much different we are as individuals. I mean, you're in California or Nashville or wherever you're at, and we're in middle America, and we're all so different. But I know you worked with artists of so varying talents and abilities and lifestyles. But music's music, and we're all still just trying to make it through this life, aren't we, Val and Katrina as well?
Yeah, I mean, music is music, exactly. I mean, where are you located?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay, so the first time I went to Oklahoma was to meet Garth Brooks. And he was signing with Capitol Records Nashville. Mm-hmm. And my friend Jimmy Bone was signing him. And that was a long time ago. But, you know, I work with people that are from all different places in the country, but they all seem to have ended up here at some point, you know. Eric Carmen's from Cleveland, you know. They're all, everybody seems to come from somewhere and end up here. Very few people started here. I'm one of the few.
You're one of the unicorns, is that what they call them?
Started here.
No, you too, but I'm just saying I'm one of the few. She's one of the few.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. And Oklahoma is one of the few states I haven't been to. I think I've been to all states but 8. And I was supposed to come there opening for Leon Russell, but that tour never happened because unfortunately he became ill and then he never recovered. But you're absolutely on point about that. And that's one of the great things about music is I always say music connects us because I mean it and because it's true.
That's for sure. Well, I want to make sure, Val and Katrina, to let folks know the single, the EP, the album, the full work as well, and YouTube, social media, and all that stuff. Where's the best place to keep up with not only the single but everything else you got going as well?
Well, the best place is through social media, of course. Instagram and Facebook and all those places. Well, Facebook is simple. It's Val Garay, and Instagram, it's
Val Ltd.
VAL Ltd, Val Limited.
And your website.
And my website, which is valgaray.com.
All right. And Katrina?
You can find me at Katrina Music on the X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram is also at Katrina Music. Facebook is Katrina fan page. And my website's really easy. It's my first and last name.com. And so if you don't have social media or you would rather just kind of see everything, you can go to KatrinaWoolverton.com.
And that is with 2 O's. Well, Katrina Woolverton, Val Garay, it has been a true privilege to have the chance to visit with you. Katrina, hopefully we can catch up again real soon, and I hope you guys have a great weekend as well.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.